Today on Deep Dive, we're going to be looking at Marvel Comics Captain America Annual number 1. Can Cap and Bucky thwart the plans of the Axis powers? Let's flip some pages and find out. Hello everyone, my name is Devin, also known as DH Artist, and welcome back to my Deep Dive series. Today we'll be looking at some of the early adventures of the Star-Spangled Avenger, Captain America, and if you missed my deep dive coverage of some of his other issues, I'll link to them in the video description below. Today's comic features 5 exciting stories that originally premiered in Marvel's Tales of Suspense. There's one overarching adventure split between 3 chapters, and one features the first appearance of Batroc the Leaper. Since I didn't have these specific issues in my collection, I figured this would be a nice addition to my channel. Now with each book you can expect their conditions to vary. Today's issue is in good condition. While there's some staining on a few of the page edges, there's nothing to detract from the artwork. Now even though this can be viewed on your phone or computer, try casting it onto your TV so you can really see the detail and quality of the book. If you're interested in learning more about the King of Comics himself, Jack Kirby, be sure to check out the Jack Kirby Museum here on YouTube. They've got hours of amazing content and information. I'll also leave a link to their website in the video description below. If you enjoy these types of videos and want to see more content like it, check out some of my other deep dives. I've covered issues like Doom Patrol number 86, Avengers number 43, Mr. Miracle number 3, and Thor number 161, featuring an epic battle between Galactus and the God of Thunder. For a complete list of my videos, visit the organized playlists on my channel. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a single video. Captain America Annual number 1 was published in January of 1971. Editor-in-chief was Stan Lee. Cover artists were Marie Severin and Frank Giacoia. Our first story, The Origin of Captain America, first appeared in Tales of Suspense number 63. It was written by Stan Lee, penciled by Jack Kirby, inked by Frank Giacoia, and lettered by Artie Simek. The second story, Midnight in Greymoor Castle, first appeared in Tales of Suspense number 69. It was written by Stan Lee, penciled by Jack Kirby, inked by Dick Ayres, and lettered by Artie Simek. The third story, If This Be Treason, first appeared in Tales of Suspense number 70. It was written by Stan Lee, penciled by Jack Kirby and George Tuska, and lettered by Sam Rosen. Our fourth story, When You Lie Down with Dogs, first appeared in Tales of Suspense number 71. It was written by Stan Lee, penciled by Jack Kirby and George Tuska, inked by Joe Sinnott, and lettered by Sam Rosen. Our fifth and final story, 30 Minutes to Live, first appeared in Tales of Suspense number 75. It was written by Stan Lee, penciled by Jack Kirby and Dick Ayres, inked by John Tartaglione, and lettered by Artie Simek. The book consists of 68 pages with a cover price of 25 cents. Our first story, The Origin of Captain America, begins in the draft days of World War II, and even as America was flexing its muscles, enemy agents were at work sabotaging factories that made weapons for the Allied powers. Entering an unassuming-looking gift shop, 3 high-ranking government officials ascend to a hidden laboratory. They then take their seats for a demonstration of a top-secret formula. Volunteering for the demonstration is Steve Rogers. With a thin and frail, somewhat sickly-looking frame, he was rejected from joining the military because of his puny body. Accepting the top-secret formula, Steve drinks it quickly. A few moments pass when suddenly his body begins to change. Once the transformation is complete, America has its new champion, a new defender, destined to be a living symbol of glory. But while everyone is distracted, a Gestapo spy enters the laboratory. He then shoots the lead scientist, Dr. Erskine, as he professes his hatred for democracy and freedom. Preparing to shoot again, the Nazi turns his gun on Steve Rogers, but before he can fire, Steve moves with the speed of thought, knocking the spy back and disarming him. Attempting to escape, the gunman doesn't look where he's going. He then runs into the electrical omniverter, killing him instantly. With Dr. Erskine dead, the top-secret formula died with him, but Steve Rogers' story is just beginning. In the weeks and months that followed, Steve Rogers was given a new identity, Captain America, and armed with a mighty shield and memorable costume, he raced into action, striking terror into the hearts of enemy agents. But between missions, while a grateful nation pondered Cap's true identity, we find the hero disguised as an army private, and playing the part of a bumbling, clumsy soldier, guaranteed that no one would pay attention to him. Well, almost no one. He did meet the camp mascot, Bucky Barnes, and the two became fast friends. One night, while Steve was changing into his costume for an upcoming mission, Bucky stumbled into his tent. Putting everything together, he realized Cap's true identity. Insisting that he'd keep his secret, Bucky asked to become his partner, and so after months of training and receiving his own uniform, one of the most famous fighting teams of all time was born. Some time passes until one night, while patrolling the coastline, our two heroes stumble upon some Nazis sneaking into the country, carrying explosives to damage our shoreline installations. Leaping into action, Cap and Bucky ambush the soldiers, and it doesn't take long for them to subdue the enemy. But when Bucky finds himself cornered, Cap saves him with a well-placed throw of his shield. Securing the troops to a nearby tree, Cap and Bucky gather up the assorted weapons and explosives, loading them into the enemy raft. Then carefully escorting it out to sea, our heroes watch as the tide carries it towards the unsuspecting Nazi sub. And just as they arrive safely back on land, the sub is destroyed in a tremendous explosion. And with that victory, Captain America and Bucky vow to work together for as long as the free world needs them. Our second story, Midnight in Greymoor Castle, is the first of a three-part adventure, and it begins one fateful night during World War II, where in a remote part of Britain we find Greymoor Castle. Within its cold stone walls is the secret laboratory of Dr. Rollins, a Nazi scientist and traitor to the Allies. Protected by his Flex-a-Lead suit, the Doctor exposes two plastic replicas of Captain America and Bucky to deadly rays of radiation. A short time later, we see that the radiation has shrunk the figures down to microscopic size, making them small enough to fit in a jar. Pleased with the successful experiment, a Nazi commander departs for Berlin, informing Dr. Rollins that they'll soon have a plan to capture Cap and Bucky. With the commander gone, Dr. Rollins' sister, Celia, confronts him for working with the enemy, and the only reason she's still by his side is because she feels responsible for an injury he sustained to his hand many years ago. Leaving the castle, we head to another part of Britain and find a company of rangers training for an upcoming mission. With the column of troops preparing to depart, Bucky begs Steve to let him join them on their big push, but Steve reminds him that teenage mascots can't go into combat and that he'll have to stay on base until they return. That night, while Steve and the rest of the troops strike out for a Nazi-held port across the channel, Nazi saboteurs attack the army base. Seeing this as his big break to show what he can do, Bucky changes into his costume. He then leaps the fence, following a trail left by the Nazis. But after heading into the underbrush, Bucky runs right into a trap. They quickly knock him out and throw him into a waiting car, before driving him to Greymoor Castle to use him as bait to lure Captain America to them. Some of the interesting advertising found within this issue is a full-page ad for Tom Daniels Iced Tea, a fun model kit from Monogram. There are several house ads featuring Marvel's Greatest Comics number 29, and annuals for The Mighty Thor, Amazing Spider-Man, and X-Men. There's a half-page ad for the Marvel Mania magazine, and on the back there's a full-page ad for the famous Artist School Studio, featuring Norman Rockwell. Meanwhile, in a coastal town of Nazi-occupied France, we find Steve and his fellow Rangers pushing hard against the Nazi forces. Storming the Gestapo headquarters, Steve charges ahead of the others, still careful not to reveal his alter ego. Making his way to the communications room, Steve reviews the radio dispatches, looking for anything of value. Discovering a communique detailing the capture and imprisonment of Bucky, Steve bolts out an open window, heading to a nearby airfield to make his way to Greymoor Castle. But in his haste to save Bucky, he missed another important dispatch, one that detailed Nazi reinforcements moving in to strike the Rangers. A quick costume change later, Steve arrives at the nearby airfield, racing onto the tarmac, chasing a Luftwaffe fighter on his motorcycle. Dodging a barrage of bullets, he jumps onto the plane's tail, and just as it takes off, he smashes his way inside, overpowering the crew. Meanwhile, back at Greymoor Castle, Dr. Rollins fires up his equipment, making the proper adjustments, preparing to expose Bucky to powerful Z-rays. And as this page ends, we see Cap heading across the English Channel, unaware of the impending danger that both Bucky and the Rangers are in. Our third story, If This Be Treason, is the second of a three-part adventure, and it picks up right near the end of the previous chapter. Having glossed over how Cap commandeered a Luftwaffe plane, we now get to see some great action of Cap busting up some Nazis. Storming the cockpit, Cap easily knocks out the pilots. He then takes the controls, charting a path to Greymoor Castle. Meanwhile, in the castle laboratory, we find Bucky prisoner of Dr. Rollins, and having received reports that Captain America is on his way, the Doctor gets to work setting his trap, so when the Star-Spangled Avenger arrives, he'll be knocked out by sleeping gas. Rushing into the room, his sister Celia tries to reason with him, and though she begs him not to betray his country, Dr. Rollins ignores her, siding with the Nazis. Setting their plan into motion, the Nazi commander radios directly to Captain America, giving him the castle's exact coordinates. Adjusting his course, Cap is intercepted by the Royal Air Force, believing him to be an enemy bomber. But after some fancy flying between barrage balloons and under a bridge, he's able to lose them. He then lands safely in the forest near the castle. Figuring that they're tracking his every movement, Cap avoids a direct frontal assault, choosing instead to scale the age-worn castle walls. Landing in the castle courtyard, Cap smashes through the main door, finding Bucky waiting for him. Noticing that the room is empty, with Bucky facing the door, Cap suspects that there must be a trap, and as he pauses to inspect his surroundings, Celia bursts into the room, warning him to run while he still has a chance. Having lost the element of surprise, the Nazi commander takes Celia hostage, and as Cap blocks the Nazi bullets with his shield, 2 soldiers in knight's armor close in on him from behind. But being the super soldier that he is, Cap sees them out of the corner of his eye. He then deals out some good old-fashioned American justice, taking them on one by one. Noticing that the commander is going for his gas mask, Cap senses there might be another phase to the trap, but he soon finds himself caught in the crossfire, pinned behind his shield for cover. Blocking the barrage of bullets, Cap makes his way to Bucky, but before he can release him, the room fills with sleeping gas, and he quickly succumbs to the fumes. As the fascists take Cap prisoner, we turn our attention back to occupied France, where we find the American Rangers trapped in the jaws of a Nazi pincer movement. Outnumbered on both flanks, the soldiers fall back to the beach, and with no sign of Steve Rogers, their sergeant assumes that he's a deserter. Demanding them to release his sister, Dr. Rollins confronts the commander, but the Nazi strikes him to the floor, explaining that the plan has changed. Then slowly, a section of the castle floor rolls back, revealing a V2 rocket. The Nazi commander then explains that their true plan was not to shrink Cap and Bucky, but rather send them in a rocket striking at the heart of London, targeting Winston Churchill. Our fourth story, When You Lie Down with Dogs, is the third and final part of our 3-part adventure, and it picks up right where we left off. Knocked out by sleeping gas while trying to rescue Bucky, Cap finds himself prisoner of the Nazis. Revealing their true plans to fire a V2 rocket at London, the Nazis prepare to load their prisoners, Captain America, Bucky, and Celia, into the rocket's cargo hold. Angered by their deception, Dr. Rawlings begs them to release his sister, but since she tried to save Cap and Bucky, she must be punished. Then taking him away, the guards throw Dr. Rawlings into a holding cell. Meanwhile, just as the guards are about to place Cap in the rocket, one of them trips, dropping him to the ground. Slowly coming to and observing his surroundings, Cap explodes into a fighting fury, knocking the surprised guards back. He then cartwheels to cover as the soldiers fire blindly into the air. Through the barrage of bullets, the commander warns Cap that if he doesn't surrender, he'll shoot his partner, Bucky. But the roar of gunfire has caused Bucky to wake up, and with a quick judo chop, he frees himself, laying down quick cover fire and retrieving the shield before joining back up with Cap. Sensing his moment to strike, Cap hurls his shield into the fray, and with pinpoint accuracy, it bounces off of the walls, ricocheting into the Nazi soldiers. Then retrieving it mid-sprint, Cap leaps headlong into the remaining troops, easily knocking them out. And with the fight nearly over, the Nazi commander takes Celia hostage, freezing our patriotic pair. Breaking away from their grasp, Celia kicks herself free, leaving plenty of room for Cap to strike. Then, attempting to save our heroes, she tries to pry a gun from a soldier's hand, but in the struggle, the gun goes off, striking her. As she collapses to the ground, Bucky knocks out the Nazi, and while Cap sees to Celia's wound, Bucky rushes to free Dr. Rawlings from his cell. Blaming himself for his traitorous actions, Dr. Rawlings is unable to save his sister. Close by, Cap speaks with Bucky, telling him that in war, you don't have to be in the armed forces to be a casualty. Rounding up the Nazis, Cap and Bucky secure them in the dungeon, where they'll be nice and snug till the MPs arrive. Turning his attention back to the Rangers he left in France, Cap quickly thinks of a plan to save them from Nazi reinforcements. Agreeing to help and avenge his sister, Dr. Rawlings gets to work adjusting the V2 rocket's guidance controls, aiming it instead at the swastika-wearing cowards. With everything set, our heroes head down to the control room, watching as the rocket launches for France. But when the launch triggers rocket fuel stored in the castle, they're knocked back by a powerful explosion. And as fire fills the room, Cap and Bucky flee for the exit, leaving Dr. Rawlings sensing that the recent events have driven him mad. Not wanting to leave the prisoners to suffer the same fate, Cap goes to free them. But when the Nazis try to rush and kill them, Cap and Bucky leap to safety, just as the castle is rocked by another explosion. Standing victorious, our heroes watch as the castle collapses. Then at that very moment, back in occupied France, the mighty V2 rocket strikes its target, shattering the Nazi reinforcements, saving the Rangers. Celebrating the victory, the Rangers will never suspect that they were saved by a masked man, a man armed only with a shield and an unquenchable thirst for freedom. Our fifth and final story, 30 Minutes to Live, picks up a few issues later, right where Tales of Suspense number 74 left off. Having successfully destroyed the 3 sleeper devices, saving the world from destruction, we find Captain America hurtling seaward. But at that very moment, back in New York City, we visit a secret hideout where a demonstration is about to begin, testing the explosive capability of a dangerous element called Inferno 42. Watching as an entire model city is engulfed in a tremendous explosion, 3 shadowy figures discuss their plan for world domination. But since they require more of the element, Inferno 42, they intend to hire the villain Batroc to steal some from S.H.I.E.L.D. Catching back up with Captain America, we find that he lands safely in the ocean. Floating to the surface unconscious, Cap is pulled to safety by some sailors, who happen to be in the area. The next day, having returned to New York City, we find Steve resting comfortably in his apartment. However, following the events of Avengers number 4, Cap can't help but think of his past, about his young friend Bucky Barnes, who gave his life for freedom, and his old army sergeant, wondering if he ever learned that Steve Rogers and Captain America were the same person. Deciding to step out and get some fresh air, Steve covers his red, white, and blue costume with his civilian disguise. But as he wanders the busy streets, he brushes past a woman, who seems oddly familiar as someone from his World War II days. Following at a close distance, Steve tries to figure out if she's really from his past. Then, noticing a stranger bump into her, he spots them pull a switch by exchanging the package she's carrying with an identical one, before running off down the street. Helping her to her feet, Cap tries to explain that he saw the package swap, but when she denies it, telling him to forget the whole thing, Cap realizes that they must be in cahoots. And Cap couldn't be more correct, for as part of a plan to securely transport Inferno 42, S.H.I.E.L.D. devised the package swap between the man and woman. Meanwhile, not far away, working for the shadowy figures interested in the dangerous element, Batroc the Leaper intercepts the fleeing S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, knocking his package to the ground. But upon further inspection, Batroc finds that it was only a decoy, and that the real Inferno 42 must still be with the mystery woman. Back down the street, as the woman continues on her way, Cap can't help but worry that she's still in danger. No sooner had she turned the corner when a gunshot rings out from that direction. Ducking down a nearby alley, Cap changes into his costume. He then rushes to check on her, coming face to face with Batroc the Leaper, attempting to steal her package. As the two costume figures fight, the woman reaches for her discarded gun, but before she can reach it, Batroc smashes it. Using his fast reflexes, Batroc lands a few strikes on Cap, but it doesn't take long for Steve to counter, landing his own punches. Gaining the upper hand, Cap questions Batroc about the importance of the cylinder package. Explaining to Cap that the woman is an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., he tells him about the dangerous new element Inferno 42. Realizing that the device could destroy all of New York, Cap and Batroc worry that it may have become activated when it was first knocked to the ground. But in the chaos of the fight, they find that the woman left with the cylinder, and the two race down the street looking for her. But being an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., she's already escaped, quickly ducking down an alley and into a secret passageway, never suspecting the imminent danger that she and the entire city might be in. Now the story was continued in Tales of Suspense number 76, and once I add that to my collection, I'll be sure to link to it in the video description below. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive. If there's a particular issue or comic you'd like me to flip, drop it down in the comments section and I'll see if I can add it to my poll box. If you enjoy these types of videos, please show your support by subscribing to my channel. As always, please consider liking and feel free to share this video. And until next time, deep divers, thanks for watching.